People often talk about faith as if it were above questioning, like it deserves a special pass from logic and reason. But the moment you start looking closely, really closely, at what some religions ask people to believe, you notice something odd. A pattern. The beliefs don't just sound strange, they sound disconnected from how we normally process reality. Take talking animals, for example. In some traditions, there are stories of serpents that talk, donkeys that argue with humans, and birds delivering divine revelations. Now, if someone told you their neighbor's cat was whispering moral advice to them, you'd probably be concerned. But put that same claim in a holy book and suddenly, for many, it becomes sacred instead of silly. This isn't about mocking anyone. It's about asking a simple question. Why do we treat certain ideas as untouchable just because they're old and labeled as religious? Some beliefs, if stripped of the religious label, wouldn't survive 5 minutes of scrutiny. The idea that the entire universe, billions of galaxies, all of physics, time, and space, was created just a few thousand years ago for the purpose of a single species on a single planet is one of them. That belief still circulates in many circles. Despite all we've learned through geology, cosmology, and biology, it hangs on, not because it makes sense, but because it's protected. Or consider the belief that eating certain foods on certain days makes you spiritually impure. Or that covering a specific body part is the difference between righteousness and sin. At what point does morality stop being about compassion and start becoming a dress code? In some traditions, people believe that saying specific words can change the outcome of reality. That a prayer, if recited just the right way, in just the right language at just the right time, can influence weather, fertility, or even someone's afterlife. If this wasn't religious, it would be indistinguishable from spellcasting. But when it is religious, it's given a kind of unquestioned authority. Another common belief is that suffering, especially intense, lifelong suffering, is part of a divine plan, and not just tolerated by a higher power, but actively orchestrated. As if your child's cancer, your lost job, or a tsunami killing thousands is all part of a cosmic narrative that's somehow for the best. It's a strange reversal. Suffering, instead of being something we seek to reduce, becomes something people are told to accept, even praise. It gets even more curious when you hear about religious relics, objects believed to hold supernatural power. Pieces of wood said to be from a cross, bones of saints, drops of blood that never dry. In any other context, this would be seen as magical thinking, but place it in a gold case inside a cathedral and it becomes revered. Then there are the purification rituals. Washing in special water, reciting words to remove invisible sins, avoiding contact with certain people or objects because they're unclean. These beliefs, often inherited from ancient taboos, reflect a primitive understanding of disease, contamination, and morality all mixed together. But even today, they're enforced with deep seriousness, sometimes at the cost of science and reason. Many people are also taught that sexual thoughts are inherently impure, that the body itself, something natural, biological, and shared by every living human, is a source of shame. Cover it, hide it, deny it. Some religious teachings go so far as to blame natural desire for everything from social collapse to spiritual failure. It's not just unscientific, it's psychologically harmful. Here's another one. The idea that your eternal fate, whether you spend infinity in paradise or agony, depends not on your actions, but on whether you believe the right thing about the right God. This turns morality into a quiz show. You could live a life of kindness and generosity, but if you pick the wrong belief, eternal punishment. Meanwhile, someone else could live selfishly but convert at the last minute and be rewarded. That's not justice, that's divine favoritism. And speaking of punishment, the concept of hell, eternal torture, is one of the most extreme beliefs held by many religions. It's an idea so cruel that if any human proposed it, we'd call it sadistic. But place that idea in the hands of a god, and suddenly, it's sacred. Eternal conscious torment for finite mistakes or even just disbelief. No court on earth would accept that logic. But somehow, for many, it becomes acceptable when it's part of a holy doctrine. There's also the belief in possession, that invisible beings can enter your body and control your actions. In the past, this explained mental illness. Today, we have neurological and psychological models that make much more sense. But in many places, exorcisms still happen, sometimes violently, sometimes fatally. It's not just the absurdity of the belief, it's the damage it causes when it's taken seriously. Some religious systems also have deeply superstitious numerology. The idea that certain numbers are evil, or that specific combinations of letters or gestures can open or close spiritual doors. These aren't symbolic, they're believed to be real, like mathematical keys to the universe. But remove the religious context, and it becomes clear this isn't profound, it's just coded fear. Or take the idea that people can be born into a spiritual debt, that they carry the sins of ancestors, or even of mythical figures like Adam and Eve. Original sin, inherited guilt. It's a system that begins by telling people they are broken, before they've done anything at all. Why do these beliefs persist? One reason is because they're introduced early. Children are told these stories before they have the tools to question them. When you're 5 and someone tells you a man lived inside a whale or that a woman turned into salt for looking backward, you're not likely to push back. It becomes part of your mental furniture. Another reason is social reinforcement. These beliefs are embedded into holidays, traditions, and family dynamics. Questioning them can mean conflict, even rejection. So many stay quiet. They don't believe it all, maybe not even most of it, but they repeat the motions anyway. Then there's the fear. What if you're wrong? What if you doubt and that doubt is punished? That's not belief. That's blackmail. Believing absurd things isn't harmless when those beliefs are tied to real-world power. When laws are passed based on scripture, when education is altered to fit religious timelines, when people are denied rights because of ancient texts, that's when myth starts dictating modern life. And often, these absurd beliefs aren't just tolerated, they're enforced by governments, by families, by social pressure. There are places today where leaving a religion can cost you your freedom or your life. That's how fragile the system really is. It needs control to survive, because once people start asking honest questions, the whole structure starts to wobble. That's why it matters. Because absurd beliefs aren't just funny stories, they're blueprints for real behavior. They shape how people vote, how they treat others, how they raise their children. And when those beliefs are based on ideas that can't stand up to basic logic, the consequences ripple outward. As Epicurus once asked, "Is God willing to prevent evil, but not able?" Then he is not omnipotent. Is he able but not willing? Then he is malevolent. Is he both able and willing? Then whence cometh evil? Even in ancient times, people were thinking critically about the inconsistencies. So maybe the real question is this: why do we let belief systems escape the standards we apply everywhere else? Why is religion the one area where absurdity gets a free pass? We don't need to be hostile to question. We don't need to mock to think clearly. But we do need to stop pretending that old ideas are automatically wise just because they've lasted a long time. Some beliefs survive because they're true. Others survive because they're protected. And when beliefs shape laws, identities, and lives, we owe it to ourselves and each other to ask the hard questions, no matter how sacred the answers claim to be. Because truth doesn't fear scrutiny, but absurdity always does.